Hello, Mary. So glad to have you here with me.
Hi, Vicki.
Great to have you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, my name is Mary Carlson. I am born and raised in Cloquet, Minnesota, and have really haven't lived anywhere outside of this area. I am right now I am employed as a casual LADC licensed addiction counselor for the Center for Drugs and Alcohol, and then
Uh-huh.
also I work as a on-call chaplain at Essentia Health in Duluth. Stay pretty busy. I'm also a woman in recovery, so taking care of my recovery is important to me. I am married. We have a little dog here. Her name is Bailey. I have 4 children, 3 biological children, one bonus child, I call him. He's our oldest child. We have 9 grandchildren. So stay really busy just with life stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
So between counseling and your ministry, being a chaplain, that's interesting combination.
Well, it is. And I've actually never worked as a counselor in a field, having to do all the work that counselors do, because they do a lot of paperwork. When I went to school to become a chaplain, I learned early on that in order to do any kind of a group in a treatment center, that I had to be a licensed counselor. So that's mainly why I got my license for counseling, is because I couldn't do a group. So the groups that I've done with people for the last 20 years have been primarily spirituality groups, not religious groups.
Right.
I like to make that clear. I even make that clear to my group, because unfortunately, it seems like if a religion is brought up, there's usually an argument.
Oh,
So
sure.
the groups I do with people are more about finding what's in them, the worthiness in them, especially to remain, like, to find a place in sobriety, how to use that part as a strength to keep them going in recovery.
Wonderful. So our topic today is procrastination. Is it a problem or a response? And I think for me, it can be both, right? First, it's the
Yes.
response, and then it becomes the problem, I think. But what triggers procrastination for you, do you think?
Yeah, different things trigger procrastination for me. And different times in life too. Sometimes I'll procrastinate. Well, I guess the biggest thing for me that causes me to procrastinate is like not knowing what I'm doing. The fear of not knowing what I'm doing, like not being really clear on it. For example, I knit and crochet. So if I hit a part in the pattern that I'm not familiar with, like I have to do this little mental gymnastics to get myself to pick it up and work through it. And the funny thing is, once I get to it and work through it, it's fine, but just getting myself to that place to actually pick it up, because I just I don't know, there's something about my brain that wants to shut off if I'm not real clear. So I've noticed that, throughout different situations in my life too. If I'm going to walk into a situation and I don't have a real clear understanding of what's going to happen in that situation, yeah, it causes me a little bit of angst.
Yeah. So connected to lack of clarity and maybe some anxiety around the uncertainty.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think maybe even a little deeper is thinking that I should be able to just do it all. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yes.
Like, I should just be able to whip through this knitting. It shouldn't have to be a problem that I have to pay attention.
That, I think, is an important point. We expect so much of ourselves.
Yes,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah. What feelings cascade from procrastination?
Yeah. So mostly I think dread.
Yeah.
And I think I could link exhaustion to that,
Mhm.
because every time that thought comes into my mind that I should be doing it, and then I shut it down, it just makes me tired. And the funny thing is, I can remember having a lot of like procrastinating, maybe looking for a different job, or talking to somebody that I don't feel like talking to, and so like finding every single reason I can to put that off. And then I finally come to the point where I have to do it, and I do it, and I'm like, why did I wait so long?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that dread feeling that we get. And it's
Mhm.
an energy suck, isn't it?
Yes, huge, huge energy. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, for sure.
What do you observe about yourself and others when they're procrastinating?
When I procrastinate, I feel like I get into a place where I just sit and spin.
Mm-hmm.
So like I may have one particular issue that I'm procrastinating on, but it starts this cascade effect almost, where I just it's almost at times can be paralyzing. Is that the word?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Where depending on what the situation is, and how much how hard I am working on procrastinating, because I think that is kind of a conscious effort. It comes to mind, I don't want to do it, I'm going to put it off to the side, and it keeps bouncing back, and you keep putting it off, and it bounces back. Yeah.
Yeah. That spinning, that feeling like, especially as it's something more important and it's looming larger and larger, then
Yes.
I start freezing up on everything. That physical response of fight or flight or freeze, for me,
Yeah.
I'll start to be
Yeah.
freeze.
Yeah.
And I think that's in response to I would flight if I could.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
nowhere to run to. It's
Yeah.
like it's coming down the pike and I see it coming and oh my God, here we go.
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
find that you procrastinate less as years of your recovery have gone by, or is it still show up a little frequently?
I think I procrastinate less just because I've learned. Like,
Hmm.
in anything that we do, we recognize a pattern. And so, like, if you start to pay attention, or I should say, if I start to pay attention, I can usually recognize those patterns. And like I always tell people, we don't change anything until we really see it.
Yeah,
And sometimes it takes a while to see it, even if it keeps bumping me in the head. You know what I mean?
I
and
do.
and so now I can recognize that as, oh, I'm putting something off. You know what I mean?
Label it correctly.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know what this feeling is.
Yeah, that goes along. I can so relate because it used to be just kind of a generalized feeling of yuck and knowing I was wanting to dodge something, but not like you're saying, no clarity of even what I was trying to avoid. Just
Yeah, or
like,
that you were avoiding something.
right. And
Yeah.
now to be able to label that,
Well,
uh,
you know what? And it makes me think of the fifth step, because I've been talking a lot about the fifth step to people, and not as working through the steps, but not the fifth step, 6 and 7, step 6 and 7.
yeah,
That our character defects,
yeah,
and like so many times for me, my character defect is a reaction. It's like a
yes,
survival skill to something that's going on deeper within me. And so the trick is to recognize that I like, oh yeah, yeah, anger, sloth. Those are a couple of my good procrastination
yeah,
character defects. And then going, okay, what's deeper? What's deeper than that? And to
yes.
start looking a little deeper into what's going on.
Yeah, the motivating
Yeah,
factor to want to avoid in the first place.
yeah,
Am I afraid of not being good enough? Am I afraid of rejection? Am I afraid of
yeah.
being punished because I made a mistake? And
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
my belief system that mistakes get punished, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
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 and that deeper intrinsic stuff that we carry that we're not even aware of, but shows up in as character defects. Yeah.
Right. That
Yeah. For
operate
some
on
reason.
the
Yeah.
unconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
What tips do you have to deal with anxiety and fear before you're tempted to procrastinate? I'm sure, like me, you've kind of can start to sense it coming, like, oh, this is a pattern that I've, like you talked about, I would normally procrastinate this, calling this bill collector or having this difficult conversation with my child, or um, scrubbing the bathroom, which I hate, or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I think it comes down to that same tool again of recognizing that I'm doing it again. And then I guess the other part is like being more gentle to myself, because I have a tendency to be really cruel to myself, because if I'm not doing it right, I'm usually some kind of an idiot with, and I have a whole gamut of names I call myself, and even becoming aware of that and
The judge.
paying attention to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and I have been in recovery for a long time now. And I was amazed in the last year in particular how much that judge still operates.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
And
And the value of being able to identify it and talk it out with somebody else, to even say, hey, there you are. I see you and I hear what you're saying, and thank you for sharing. But please be quiet now.
yeah, go find someone else, go find something else to do. Yeah. 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 And I think that judge during this time, especially this COVID time and the lockdown and just the last 4 years, that judge has become such a huge part of our culture.
Yeah.
Because there's no gray area left in life anymore. It's either you're right or I'm right. You know what I mean? There's no like give or take or even trying to understand. And so, yeah, even with the procrastination stuff is like having some empathy for yourself and some understanding that usually when we procrastinate on doing something, there's an underlying reason.
Right.
And it might be that day that I'm being lazy, but in a bigger scheme and a bigger picture, there might be something deeper in there that maybe needs some exploring. But to have that kindness to yourself, and to recognize that, life. It's funny because I really. And maybe I still hang on to that whole belief that like life is just supposed to be so hunky-dory and everything's happy and I'm always smiling and life is good. And the reality is life is life. And there's probably as much pain in this life as there is good. And so how do you walk through that?
Right.
Especially when we're in that place of being so cruel to ourselves.
Yeah.
How do we have any kind of empathy or mercy for ourselves?
I think what I've learned, and I think you have too, those are the times to reach out to a friend.
Yes.
And get that support. You mentioned not being clear. I can't remember how many times I'd reach out to talk to my mentor, and she would say, well, you don't have enough information yet. And it was like, oh.
Yeah, but that's the value of having a mentor, a sponsor, someone else in your life. I remember early on when Brene Brown wrote her first book, I went to one of her workshops, and this book was on shame. And one of the things she talked about is that we should all have a shame buddy. So that when that voice starts out in our head, we can have someone to check it out with who understands that voice.
That concept, yeah.
That
is so important to be able to help you shift from, oh, this is who I am, identify that I'm a bad person because shame takes over that way, to, oh, I am experiencing shame, and is it legitimate in this circumstance?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and that's another part, is understanding my shame language.
Yeah.
Big
time.
Yeah.
Shame will shut me down. I know
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, I'll practice avoidance big time if I'm in my shame part.
Right. Yeah. So think about procrastination and what, especially like things like the bathroom. Who loves cleaning the bathroom? And so you put it off, and then shame jumps in and saying like, "You lazy sloth." You know what I mean? It's like, no, I just don't want to do it today. You know?
Yeah, it's not my cup of tea today.
Yeah.
So, our program talks a lot about taking action, and to get unstuck, you just need to take action. And even a small step can lead to another step to another step.
Yes.
Is there any other tools that you use to get unstuck?
I think that especially when I think about like early on in recovery, and you just addressed it as having that other person to talk to, and I'm so grateful I had the people around me in recovery to listen to me while I muddled through all these beliefs I had. And
Yeah.
it took many conversations with many people listening to me talk about the same thing before I finally came to a conclusion on it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so even in procrastination, if it's something that that keeps showing up that you're not doing, maybe have a conversation with somebody you trust. Like,
Yeah.
why am I so not willing to do this? What's holding me back?
Yes. Resistance, identify
Yeah.
it.
And
One thing
that's the
I've,
biggest way I've learned to
yeah,
to get through those things is to talk about them. That I don't have the answers in my head usually.
right. I've noticed about myself that if I start pulling back and withdrawing, I might need a good cry about something. And I
Mhm.
don't like to be vulnerable, but it's amazing now I've recognized, call somebody, have that cry, get it over with. It clears the energy out around whatever it is.
Yep. Yep. So true. So very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think perfectionism has any part in procrastination?
I know it does in my procrastination because I think I talked about it earlier, thinking that like I had to understand everything and know how to do it before I even entered into whatever it was I was doing, like the pattern on the in the crocheting or whatever. That part that makes me think that like I can't make a mistake, I can't do this wrong. Huge. I think, yeah, the two P's probably like are intertwined.
I think so
Perfectionism,
too.
procrastination. Yeah, we could call it PP.
Yeah, I like that. Digging deeper, if we focus on the impact on our mental and physical health, what cost are we paying when we stay stuck and resist growing?
Yeah, the price we're paying is we don't go anywhere. And
Right.
I know for a woman living in recovery, it's real easy to go backwards
Yeah.
by just avoiding that stuff. Yeah, for sure. And yeah. And I can think about that in terms of relationships that I would get into that were so harmful. But my complete unwillingness and inability, and like people would even get kind of mad and say, "What are you staying there for?" And my inability to see
Yeah.
the reason I wasn't or that it was that as bad as other people saw it. Maybe that's it. But yeah, there's this disconnect, I think, especially in relationships. And what I found for me is, and this was part of like doing a 4-step with my former marriage, is that there were a lot of things I did to survive in that marriage and to keep that marriage the way I thought it should be, because I was married to this human being that I thought I saw all these qualities in. However, those qualities would never show.
Mm.
His behaviors were completely contrast to what I thought I saw in him. And so I even, like, in doing that, my sponsor had me write a letter to him, not to give to him, but just write a letter to him and identify every place in that marriage that I did things to cause the marriage harm. And I think I was far enough along where I was able to really look and see. And what I realized is the things that like I expected him to be when he wasn't able to be that were also very shaming to him, and it led to a lot of his behaviors. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so it helped me to forgive myself because I didn't see it in me, and it helped me to forgive him because I saw how painful that must have been to him.
Yeah. You just
Yeah.
touched on something for me that causes me still to procrastinate. I don't like endings. I don't,
Yes.
any kind of ending. If it's a season, summer is ending and it's coming to fall. If it's a relationship, a job, and the idea that everything has its time and its place, man, I'll hang on as long as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important. So as we know, my show's based on small changes that lead to big shifts. What small changes could you recommend for our audience to help them get unstuck?
I guess the thing that's been most helpful to me is starting to pay attention to myself and my patterns. And for example, in procrastination, if there's something that keeps popping up that isn't getting done, then it's time to stop and kind of go, oh, okay, what's this about?
Right.
Because it may not be anything at all, really, but it might be something core to you. And until we start like paying attention to ourselves and giving ourselves some time and some energy like we would put into other, like our jobs and our relationships and stuff like that, we'll never learn those things about ourselves. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned to do is to start stepping back and go, okay, what is this?
Yeah. Take
You
an
know?
inventory of it.
Yeah.
Really
And a
admit
kind
it.
inventory also, not just
Yes.
sit back there and go, now I'm sitting here not getting that done again.
Right.
What's wrong with me?
Right.
Well, it might not be anything wrong. It might just be, who knows? But to give ourselves that time.
So curiosity, I heard you say, empathize with yourself, be curious about what is this
Yeah.
instead of blaming and shaming ourselves,
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
what is there? There might be something that your inner voice I've found sometimes is telling me I was going to sign up for a class not that long ago and I just had the link open I don't know how many times and didn't click and register. And when I paused and said, what's that about? Just like you said,
Mhm.
I didn't really want to go to the class. So if I would have been on automatic behavior that,
Yes.
you
And
know,
yeah.
I
Because
would
I
have,
used to do the automatic thing a lot. I used to just jump into stuff and not give it any thought at all.
right. Go from procrastination to jump both feet in,
Yeah,
off we
and then
go.
procrastinate because you jumped in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So being present today, you mentioned that. Uh, do you have any services or programs that you like to promote? I always give people an opportunity to promote if they have their own business, their own something that they want to have people participate in, or a Facebook group they'd love to have people join.
No, not at this time. I don't have anything of my own.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Mary. I've enjoyed our conversation. I
I
really value your
Thanks
friendship.
for inviting me. Yes.
Yeah, I
Ditto.
value that. And I know we're going to collaborate and work together on some things in the future.
Yeah, so
And
maybe I could promote those because
sure.
I'm on the same page. I have as much respect for you as I heard you say you have for me. And yeah, so
Yeah,
it's fun to be on this path together.
it definitely is. It
Mhm.
definitely is. And to me, that's really the value of recovery over time is those
Yeah.
relationships that we form with other
Yeah.
people that
Mhm.
uplift us, inspire us, and move us forward. And I'm not
Yes.
thinking that it has to be a um, big job or career or move us forward in.
In life.
Mhm. being kind to ourselves, being loving to our family, loving to ourselves. Yeah.
And, you know, and I think there's that part too about, be it recovery, be it healing, being it whatever it is, but there's kind of like a common language that we speak,
Yeah,
you know? Yeah.
most definitely.
Hmm.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank
So to
you.
my audience, I will say thank you so much for being here with us and sharing today. If you enjoyed the show, please like and leave a review. I love to get emails from my audience, so keep sending them to info@vickydon.com. Tell me what matters to you, because I want to provide content that makes a difference for you. And as we leave, remember, you create your beautiful life one moment, one step at a time. Find me at also vickydon.com. Bye now.